everybody, here's Embrower. A few of you asked me to make a tutorial for the dual VCO, and here it is. Let's go! With the dual VCO you have two oscillators which will be tuned over the both tune and detune parameters. With the detune it's a little bit special. When you start to tune your first oscillator, it's normally like you expected, one dot is one semitone. But if you start to use the tuning of the oscillator, it's always tuned with the oscillator 1 and got be detuned in a positive or negative way. But you got your first octave at 48. So every 4 dots of this parameter brings you one semitone. So this is one semitone higher than the tune of the oscillator 1, 2 semitones, 3 semitones, and so on. This is kind of 7. And with 48 you get one octave. Both have their own decay, so you can play a little bit around with the decay amount, so you can let be the second oscillator go longer than the first one. This can make very interesting sounds, for example. And then we come to the configuration of the both oscillators. They start with kind of mix, so the plus in the middle says it mixes the both oscillators, and you can set up the mix with the balance, so you can decide which one you hear more. On the right side it becomes the oscillator 2, and on the left side it is the oscillator 1. And if you're on 0, both oscillators are in the same amount of volume, so you hear them both very good. And if you cycle through them, you will see the oscillator 1 has only a kind of saw and a sine, and the second oscillator is the one with more waveforms. They call it ramp saw and so stuff, triangle, normal saw, slider saw, whatever. So they have 5 oscillator types for the oscillator 2, but only 2 for the oscillator 1. You see this underline. When you see the underline, it means that the oscillator become restarted on the trigger. That is not a kind of sync, it's more a restart when you hit a trigger on the track. So you hear every time this step is triggered, this clicky sound. If you put it off, it don't be restarted. And it is a little bit less clicky. It becomes interesting if you have more steps side to side. There you can hear more the difference between the both modes. It's not a sync, that's very bad, but it's so interesting and you can use it for sometimes. Other point is the R. It means it's a ring modulation. Both oscillators got to be ring modulated. And the F, it's for a kind of FM. And in this case, the oscillator 1 is the carrier and the oscillator 2 is the operator. The last parameter on this page is the bend amount. It's a kind of pitch envelope. So if I take a normal configuration like this. You hear kind of pitch amount. It has its own timing inside. Interesting is you get 1 octave on 24. 24. Another octave of pitch envelope on 48. Don't ask me why. It is so. And this is it. That's the dual VCO, and now I will show you some examples what you can do with the dual VCO. Let's go. Okay, first we reset this track. So everything starts with the normal. The first thing I want to show you is a normal Pluck Sound, which you can always use in any case. I don't know any track where you can't use it. To bring them in a light bit gritty way, I used a ring modulation and this sounds fine for me. We shape it in the later way with the filter, so it's interesting to get more overtones for your basic sound, so you can open up or play with your filters. Starting with a higher tuning, becoming more useful in kind of a lead sound. Too much decay on both sides. And to make it more interesting, let's use a little bit of this band. We said 1 octave is plus 24. Sounds interesting. Okay, let's come to the filter and shape it a little bit. So close the filter, make a little bit resonance, and set the envelope depth. So let's hear it. Maybe a little bit softer filter that it doesn't shape so much overtones. Sounds nice. A little bit more effects. Set a little bit of delay. Set up the delay. For the timing, 24 will be enough. So let's hear it again. Not so much feedback. Too much delay. And I will also shorten a little bit the sound. Adding a kick. That's kind of Pluck Sound. Can work with. Another idea for the dual VCO I want to show you is acid style use for the dual VCO. So let's start again with the configuration of the oscillator. I always try to start with the ring modulation because it sounds really gritty. So check up the sequence, give it more notes for the acid style, sound. It sounds very interesting if you rise up the decay of the first oscillator. We'll try to work with that. Maybe there is not the right combination of oscillators. You heard the difference between the underlined restarting oscillators with this configuration to this one, which becomes more gliding around the notes. And this underlined is more beastie and grittier. If you want it softer, you can use it without this restart. And maybe it's more in the way you sound, but this becomes an acid sound. It is important to get it a little bit beastie. Set down the tune and to make this more hearable in higher notes and not so muddy in the low end. So I got a very low note and 1 octave higher with the second oscillator. I can always use the tune on 0 and make every note 1 octave lower, but so it's more easier. The next part is the filter, and it's the heart of every acid sound. So let it close and rise up the resonance. Maybe this is enough. It's not a little bit too long, so we close this here again. So this way. So we got the basics of an acid sound. To make it even more aggressive, we add a little bit overdrive, but not over the time, because this becomes muddy again. So we use the LFO in the one-shot mode and target the overdrive and use the envelope. So we got just for a short time the overdrive. Let's hear it. And without. So it becomes more gritty but not muddy. So a little bit of delay will help too, to make it more open, not too much. So we got an acid sound. The next thing, we start with a pad. The dual VCO will not be the best opinion to make a pad, but if you only work with the Rytm, it's a quite nice thing to work with. Let's start with the standard configuration starting point. Rise up the decay, because it's a pad. You always need it longer, short. And to make it more interesting, we start with the 7th. So we have a kind of basic sound to make it more interesting, and got a kind of shift in the time we have the sound voice. We can use the LFO with the destination of the balance, so it will always shift between the oscillator 1 and the oscillator 2, and it makes it more interesting and got it kind of lifting and waving, but it has to be a little bit slower. So let's start with 3 and 16 and look where we can go. Now we have some shifting in this pad, I think, but it can be more interesting, so let's shift it more. We use the filter in the way of the notch filter, so find a sweet spot. That's an interesting point to start, and it will be moving slowly open up, so we get over the time of the pad moving filter, longer release and higher decay, longer attack, so this fit not so much. So we have the basics of a pad. To make it less aggressive, we can rise up the attack of the sound overall, so it's got a smoother start at the beginning of the trigger. Of course, adding reverb part of every pad. Making the reverb a little bit bigger. So we got a pad sound in the Rytm. We can make it a little bit more interesting if we work with the overdrive. Keep every time in mind that you have to lower the volume, so your sound will not overall the other sounds, but you get some more overtones. And another thing we can try is to work with the pitch bend in the oscillator, but this time in the negative way. This is more interesting, I think. So we have a kind of idea what pads on the Rytm can work. So the next one I want to show you is a kind of, let me say, it's a kind of BIA sound. It's the Basilimus Iteritus Alter module from Noise Engineering, and it has a very kind of punchy synth engine, and I will try to rebuild it with the analog rhythm. So in the first we need a very gritty sound, so let's start directly with FM and ring modulation. Comes at here the last one. Yeah, that's kind of this beastie sound this module normally does. Comes more detuned in the lower end to get the interesting FM part, and the other one octave higher. And this part, this is the carrier, and this is the detuned one. So we'll have to check how this sounds in this way. So it has this typically beastie attackness, but there is more to go. So let's rise the pitch band, so it's 2 octaves, and with one this pitch band will attack. And you got this kind of kicky sound, and that's very typical for this module. Let's check out the decay. That's not too long, so you don't get problems with your basses. Got it more interesting, of course, we need the filter, and close it a little bit up. Shorten the decay. And we are on the right way, I think. So let's shorten the sound a little bit more. Not too much. And put a little bit overdrive. And it's very near to this module. Maybe there can be more grittiness if you bring in the LFO and put it in very low and let it switch like in the pad from one oscillator to the other one. So both oscillators are very dark and gritty, so we get a little bit shifting darkness, I would say. The sounds will always be interesting and not got this kind of, oh, I hear it all the time and oh, now it's boring. It will be a little bit different to the trigger before, and it become more interesting if you have a little bit shift. And it's a kind of BIA sound. So the next one I want to start is a kind of glitch sound. With the glitch sound, we work with the LFO on the oscillator configuration. The first thing we need is a very normal sound, I would say, kind of like in the pad, not that long enough, but with a 7th sound, a little bit shorter, and maybe. So we start here with a very soft sound and shape it for the interesting part. We go to the LFO, and here we start with the square. We need a very low speed for this. So we got this to 1, not 0. Maybe 0 could work too. Maybe we can check this in a short. So the next thing we said is the destination is the oscillator configuration, and of course we need it restarting on every trigger. So, and now it's the part we have to find a nice other configuration for the oscillator. So at the moment we have this very soft sound, and we are looking now for another sound in this configuration. Okay, this is fine for me. I think this is an interesting combination of the one without, and we got here the 36, make it round, and the part of the LFO. And now we start to play with the fade amount, so we can switch from the basic configuration to the one we have set up in the LFO. So let's hear it in the shortened direction. Or you can use it in the other way. But I like it more in this way. So let's try it with 0 speed. So it says it doesn't change the amount, just the fade will work. It will be the same like the configuration with the 1, but if you have really long notes and you started with the fade in instead of the fade out, you don't have the problem that the cycle of the waveform will start again. So you can use it on 0. Get it here on 31. So we got a kind of glitchy sound, and to shape it more, of course, we need the filter. So we got a kind of glitchy sound that's not too weird to get in extreme range. Of course, you can make it even faster. Don't fade it out and become very glitchy sound. But this is a kind of usable glitch sounds in kind of every track you think you need glitchy sounds. So these are my 5 tips for the analog driven dual VCO. Let me know in the comments which tutorials you would like in the future. Subscribe my channel for more videos and tutorials so you never miss them. And watch my other videos. I hope you enjoyed. Thank you and good night.